Everything that's not literally the character and the narrative, that visual filmscape, that's what the production designer is involved with. In the very first instance, it's like a blank canvas. When a script comes in, there's no visuals yet. So the first person who's called in is the art director or the production designer, and that person then begins to bring the film to life. Bob called me for Forrest Gump, and what was great about getting that script was it was like being given a little hit of consciousness, because it was about somebody who was supposed to be really stupid, and yet that person never did anything stupid. So that means that you get to tell a story that takes everything that's normal and cut across it with something that's unusual. So you get to reveal that in an unusual way. And we could go from that point, which was to design a movie that was always based upon something that would be truthful emotionally. And so from there, the next step was really to say, where does this movie want to take place? What's it like where Forrest Gump lives?
We lived about a quarter mile off Route 17, about a half mile from the town of Greenbow, Alabama. That's in the county of Greenbow.
We went to Alabama, which is where the story was supposed to take place. But in a sense, searching for Forrest Gump South was searching for a place that doesn't actually really exist. It's not to say that the South isn't the South, but it doesn't necessarily always appear the way you'd want it to. So I traveled quite a bit all around until I finally got to Savannah, and while we were in Savannah, went out to this park with all the old oak trees and the dripping Spanish moss, and there I could say, now we're in the South. I know we're in the South, and this is where Forrest Gump could begin to tell this tale. So from there we branched out and found a place to build the house. And what was great about that was it was one property where we found this old oak alley with all this dripping Spanish moss. And when Bob came out there, he just said, well, this is talking to me. This is someplace I think Forrest would actually be. The house that is the Gump house, where Forrest grows up, is designed to be a house that you would recognize out of any era, from 1900 till the year 2000, as someplace that would be very much a home. Then we set about trying to figure out exactly what it should look like. So in looking at a number of houses in the area, we came up with an amalgamation of those to come up with a sort of very simple but yet clearly Southern-styled house that could be a boarding house and also would somehow almost create an icon for what Forrest represented. As you can see here, this illustration is the way we first envisioned the Gump house, and then we created another illustration in Photoshop, which was to be even more accurate. We then positioned the house in this frame here exactly where we thought it would look best in actual scale, and then positioned it in the computer so that from a very specific shot with a 28mm lens, we knew we would get the composition that Bob would want. As a final idea, just to make sure we had that house in the right place, we created a very simple facade so that Bob could actually come out there and say, yep, that's exactly where I want it. And the land that we actually found was a place that we could plant a field and create Jenny's farm, which was just down the road from Forrest. Across the street was the tree where Jenny and Forrest grew up and where Jenny's grave was, and also where part of the Vietnam sequence was filmed. Vietnam is not only a real place, it's a place in people's minds. But you knew that you wanted to somehow convey Vietnam not just as a place, but a concept, especially because it related to Forrest Gump. This isn't just Vietnam as it was. And Bob had an interesting idea about it, which was that he never wanted to actually see the Viet Cong. He never wanted to actually see the enemy. He wanted to tell it from the position of the platoon, and particularly Forrest, just having that attack come out of almost seemingly nowhere. So we found a place where we could actually plant a field that could look like it was in Vietnam. We actually brought in probably about 20 or 30 palm trees to create an area. that was actually the battlefield, and also designed it very specifically so that there was a road down the center that we could film both sides of it, and it would look like different places and then be easy for production. I think one of the toughest things about the movie was that I felt like I went way out ahead of the production and saw how really big this movie was. When everybody was getting overwhelmed in the South, and I would come back from Washington, D.C. and say, you ain't seen nothing yet, because we got only a few days up here to do an incredible amount in a very difficult situation within a city and a national park where you can't really control things. Technically, what we did is we went to the Washington Monument, and actually more specifically the Lincoln Memorial and the steps, and we staged the event. What I found to be interesting was to try to get the flavor of that particular year right, and just to get people now to write signs that looked anything like what the signs looked like back then was actually not that easy. The other sequence that's a lot of fun in that arena in Washington, D.C. is at the Watergate, because I, as the production designer, got to go to the Watergate Hotel and see where that room was that the actual break-in occurred, and then try to find the room that would actually overlook that so that you could actually stage that scene. And it's fun to actually go back and retrace and imagine that you could have been actually in that room witnessing everything that Forrest Gump actually saw. One of the great things about being a production designer and working for Bob Zemeckis is that you're always creating a perfect world, his perfect world. And what he basically says, it's like Candide. He's saying, what I would like to see in my perfect world is, and then that's my job, is to create that perfect world. And it's very specific. It's not that he knows exactly what he wants to see before we come up with it, but it is fitting an emotional, aesthetic criteria that he needs in order to tell the story.